Ledger is a writing podcast and a way for you to use your excited energy instead of querying without a complete manuscript. I'm your host, Austin Wilson. Welcome to today's show when I'm chatting with Jessica Berg from Rosecliff Literary. It's a literary agency that is accepting queries, and they also just signed a brand new agent, Tommy Dean. That name might sound familiar to you if you've listened to Ledger before. He was on the show and came on to chat about being the EIC of Fractured Lit and Uncharted Mag. Had a lot of awesome stuff to share, as does Jessica. We talk about what it's like for a day in the life of an agent, how many emails are in her query inbox, and all sorts of stuff. The importance of community, that's a big deal to me, and I'm glad we got to that topic as well. Make sure you go to rosecliffliterary.com. That's the website you can find all of their stuff on, the links to all their social media, links to the query tracker, and their manuscript wishlist page. So make sure you go there, check it out. Thank you so much to Jessica for swinging by and answering a lot of my questions, including, do you have to be a lawyer to be a literary agent? It sounds kind of like a dumb question now that I have asked it out loud and am repeating it to you. But it was in my head. I don't know where I got it. I don't know why or when that thing came into my head. But yeah, I wanted to figure it out, and she debunks it very quickly, so we can get on to better questions after that. But maybe I Googled it in the past and forgot about it. I don't know. Anyway, go to rosecliffliterary.com. Check out everything they have going on. Follow them on all their social media, and watch out for Publisher Weekly announcement. She sort of teases it in the show. As for my work, go to austinrwilson.com. You can reach me there by email, but you can also see work that I have published already and read some free comics and short stories and stuff. So check that out. But as for now, here is my chat with Jessica Berg of Rosecliff Literary. One thing that I've sort of encountered over and over in my, search for literary agents is the idea that you have to be a lawyer to be a literary agent. And I would love to talk about if that's true, or where that comes from, or your experience of becoming a literary agent. Like, do you have to be a lawyer to be a literary agent?
Yeah, I have lots of thoughts on that. And no, I'm not a lawyer. I'm an MFA. Like, what is
Yeah,
law? I'm like, oh
right.
no, did I do this wrong? I probably did this wrong.
So do you have, where do you think that comes from?
Oh, my determination to make my own path.
No, no,
I
no,
think,
no.
oh, the other part, the
Yeah,
other thing,
why
the more
do you,
realistic question.
like, when people, is it just something that I've encountered, or have you encountered that as well? Like,
Yeah,
to,
I don't think that I've encountered that. I mean, I feel like I see a lot of recovering attorneys who end up writing thriller or suspense.
mhm.
Like that feels like a very tired trope to me. I'm like, oh, you're a recovering attorney. Or you're writing rom-coms about recovering attorneys. And I'm like, babe, please stretch out. Like there are a lot more characters you can write. But I'm running through all of my literary agent friends, and none of us are lawyers. Though I will say we are about to announce an new addition to Rosecliff really soon who did go to law school. So now I've just proved myself completely wrong.
You've just lied to me.
Well, I that's weird. How did this happen for you? What kind
I
of work do you write though? Maybe that's why.
so I don't write anything that is particular. Like, I'm not writing like Grisham light, yeah,
Sure.
like political intrigue with lawyers. Potentially, I read this somewhere, or I don't know. I think the thing that I encountered over and over as I was searching for literary agents in the past, or just interacting with that world, is that the person who's going to be negotiating your contracts needs to be a lawyer. And I'm curious if somebody wrote that or said that to me at some point because they had a bad experience, or just the realities of what it means to be a literary agent and to engage in, I guess, contract negotiation. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a sticky part of this business, right?
Yeah.
Is really looking at it thoroughly and understanding the language of the contract. And every contract is different, so there's no template and there's no real easy way to study it. That said, first lawyers exist outside of the literary agency space, and so tapping one of those at any point in time if a contract feels funky is the best course of action.
Yeah.
And also, I think, I don't know, I think in really big agencies, you're going to have lawyer components built in anyway. For something small like Rosecliff, we're really boutique. I've just got attorney friends that I know. So if the contract does feel weird, if you do enough of them and you read them enough or you just study them, like kind of know what you're going to be looking for. And so if there's this strange clause about like, author agrees to give 45% of ebook sales. Like, hold on, we know that this cannot, should not be in this contract.
Right. So for Rosecliff, so you said you have friends who are lawyers. Is the standard practice, like let's say you're an agent like you who aren't a lawyer, is the standard practice then to be like, okay, I'm going to help you negotiate this contract, but I'm going to then pull in a lawyer as well, alongside my services, so that we can figure out what is the best for you? Is that something that all literary agents do? I mean, I know that's such a broad question because every agency is different and every agent is doing something different for the manuscript that they have. How standard is that?
I think that if it's a really big deal, right? If you're talking in publisher marketplace terms, it's a very good deal. So we've got six figures or more on an advance. Then it behooves the agent and the client to bring in someone who is so steeped in contract law to make sure that all of this makes sense. If it is a pretty standard deal, I feel comfortable enough to say, okay, I understand the language here. And of course, by the time you get the actual contract, you've already received a deal memo from the publisher. And that deal memo breaks down the big parts of the contract. So you might quibble on a line or two in a contract, but you've already seen the deal memo. So, for example, I know what kind of percentages my client's going to get. We obviously already know the advance, we already know our timeline. So I feel like I know enough right now. I'm knocking on all the things, of course, but I
Sure.
feel like I know enough right now to feel comfortable with it. But I also have this amazing group of agent mentors who I know I can come to with a contract and say, okay, is this good? Like, is it kosher? Does it make sense?
Yeah. Did you get those agent mentors like as you were getting your MFA? When did that become a part of your life, like developing Rosecliff and also finding those agent mentors? Because I know for a lot of people out there, and definitely from my experience in the past, finding agents who will talk to you is not the easiest thing in the world. So I'm curious where you found your mentors and when.
That's a big thing that I'm trying to shift is this idea that agents are inaccessible. And I understand why we have our boundaries in place, right?
Sure.
Like, please don't DM me your query.
Right.
Please don't DM me, a question specific to industry. But if you want to DM me a picture of your cat, I'm not going to say no to that, right? Because I want
Sure.
everyone in my community to know that I am a person
Yeah.
first and I'm an author. So I understand this business. So no, I did not receive any agent mentorship during my MFA. I feel like I learned how to think about story and how to dissect narrative really well in my MFA program. But I think MFAs prep you to go into teaching, right? It's a terminal degree for a reason. I absolutely thought I was going to be like that PhD with a bunch of cats, like I had a vision. And of course, life moved on in different directions, which I'm grateful for. But
Sure.
all to say that no, it wasn't until I landed my agent,
Hmm.
because I am an author, that I started thinking about, okay, what is this person's role? What is their function in this industry? And then I was like, oh wow, I really love what they're doing. And so I tried to branch out from there and to make friends in that way. I try to think of all of this as a cocktail party and not a networking event. So like
Hmm.
I come with a lot of questions. I've got a journalism background. I will ask until you're
Yeah.
like, Jessica, leave me alone, which is fine. But I think that personality kind of endears me to some people to some degree, and so I've really been fortunate to find a lot of agents who are willing to talk me through the business.
That's awesome. And I
Yeah.
mean, essential. I mean, finding mentors basically in anything, really. I mean, someone who can talk to you and is going to tell you the truth and help you, navigate the weird corners of wherever you are is just a good thing. And you said something in there. I guess I've always been curious about it, but I don't know that I've ever thought about it really until today, or at least not this intentionally. But if you are a writer and you are an agent, do you have to have another agent or can you agent yourself?
You want to have another agent because you want that buffer, right? Our
Yeah.
industry is one of gates, and some of them are superfluous and some of them are very important. And I think
Yeah.
the agent author relationship is key because first of all, I don't know when my work is terrible because I'm going to tell you it's great.
Sure.
Right? Everyone's going to say that. So you absolutely have to have that external pair of eyes looking at your work. And secondly, the way that an agent champions an author's work is essential to getting it sold. So I always say I need to love my client's work more than they love it because then I can be your hype man. But I'm probably not the best fit to be my own hype man.
Yeah, that is a hard balance to strike,
Yeah.
knowing when something needs work. But also, and I talk about this a lot with people. I've recently had this conversation with some friends, even that line between art and commerce and figuring out how to navigate that and like how to, I mean, essentially, like hop back and forth across the line, and agents seem like a good mechanism for that. Be like, you just stay on that side of the line, and I'm going to chill out over here, and we'll sell this.
Yes, absolutely. Not to mention, this is a relationships business. So I can't, the things that I write are not the things I read, right? I keep trying to not be a literary fiction writer, and it's just never going to happen. I'm a recovering poet. This is my prose. I can never come to commercial, but I rep commercial. So I don't have established relationships with editors to even be able to sell my work, right? They're going to see my name in their inbox and be like, I don't know who this is. So having an agent who gets your work, that's why it's so critical, right? Like they have to understand your genre, they have to understand how they position it. Because I always say, when you go from calling yourself a writer to calling yourself an author, you have then entered into a contract with yourself that your work is now a commodity.
Yeah,
And because it is a commodity, that means we have to adhere to the industry in some way. Yes, we can create work for work's sake, but you need established readership to get really weird. And so, how do you provide yourself the opportunity to get weird? You align with what the industry wants to see for a while.
so what do you mean by that? Get really weird? Do you just mean your writing style, or to embrace
Yeah.
who you are?
Oh, I mean, look, everyone else can be everyone else. Like, show up as authentically as you can, first of all.
Yeah,
But yeah, getting weird. Maybe you've got a really fun narrative that doesn't follow conventional structure, or you want to use an ensemble cast in second person in present tense, or something, that we're just
yeah,
not seeing on the bookstores. All of that is fine. And I love hearing that drive from my clients, but I'm not going to be able to sell your debut if that's what it is.
right.
Right? Because, I mean, if you're writing historical action adventure, like, we have to look at who's selling historical action adventure, and you have to conform to that to some degree. And then by the time you've sold 3, 4 books, your readership knows who you are, your community knows who you are. You can be like, "Oh, guess what? I'm actually very weird, and here's this thing." But everyone's gonna buy into it because they already know and love your work.
Yeah, well, it's like when what it was yesterday, I think, right? John Green's new book came out, and it's a nonfiction book about tuberculosis, and it's gonna sell like a John Green book, and it is
Yep.
not a YA novel.
Right, right, and so if we look back at his stable, like, what else he's written, I'm sure his agent gave him that same advice, like, establish yourself to this community, and then you can do things, and we see that in all other spaces, right? It's not just for this medium. A chef opens a restaurant, they're not gonna lead with their tiniest, weird little French dishes. They're going to
Right.
maybe open up with a hamburger and fries because that's what we all know and love, and then they go on with it. So, we're the same way.
You were talking about seeing what agents do and falling in love what they do. Talk to me about the parts that specifically jumped out at you, and then we'll talk about the differences between writing and being an agent. So, what jumped out at
Sure.
you first where you were like, "Oh, I need to be an agent."
After my MFA, I worked as a developmental editor for quite some time, and I really loved that stage of the process. A writer comes to me with work that needs polish and refinement, and I can see all the things. But then I would always inevitably mourn that project and mourn that author because they go on to do whatever, and I never hear from them again. right? And so I think of being an agent as being the connector between the project and the public. And that is just, it is a space that I thrive in. I am the person at the party to say, hey, have you met this person? And then I walk away. And
Yeah.
so that's literally what I'm doing on a professional sense.
Okay. So the differences then between, because that seems almost like anathema to someone who's like, I'm going to sit at this keyboard in silence for 5 hours or, however long it is. How's that? How do you contain these multitudes? Let's talk about that.
What a question. I think we all have inherent strengths.
Yeah.
I feel like I can get to the heart of things really quickly, and so that is a very easy reach for me professionally to say, "Okay, I know how to do this." Sitting to pages is something that I've done for decades. Several decades, right? And so
Yeah.
I can't imagine my life without the creation of words. I am consumed by narrative, by story. And so I think it really allows me to exist in this dichotomy, right? Where I spend, the first 90 minutes of my day in this story, and then I get to go exist in everyone else's stories. Plus, that's a lot of pressure to like write for more than 90 minutes, right? Like I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I've done my work. Now let me let me take on everyone else's work.
See, I'm so glad you said that because for me, and maybe I've mentioned this on the show before, I discovered that my like limit for the day is like if I can get 3 hours in, that is where my brain is like, all right, man, that's as much as I can take. And for you, it's 90 minutes. That's the where you're like, I did it, I succeeded.
Yeah, it's 90 minutes because I have to be so sharp for all of my clients and my query inbox and everything that I'm doing. If I have a day off, I can spend all day in my narrative. Like if it's behaving, right? Like if it's one of those
Sure.
days where I'm like, I can't write a word, then I'm like, I don't know. Who's a novelist? Not me. But yeah, 3 hours is a great stretch of time. I mean, I think maybe I'm picking up on like, you sit to morning pages and allow the narrative to be whatever it is, go have a walk, have a lunch, come back, have a nap, come back, and then it's like edit time, right? Because your
Yeah.
brain is working in a different way, right? But actual generation, yeah, I think 3 hours is a nice sweet spot.
That's usually where I can land and feel good about
Yeah,
it. And yes, that's on the days where it's behaving and I'm not like, I'm a fraud. What the hell's my
right.
problem? All that
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah,
So let's talk about that query inbox. What's it look like? What's your day? I do want to get into the just like what do you do in a day thing, but
sure.
what's your query inbox look like?
It's a little hectic right now. I was in there yesterday and I got it down to around 350. So that's fun. I operate a little differently than some agents in that I request a full if I'm captivated by the query letter and I feel like the synopsis holds up. So I don't faff around with, oh, here's 10 pages, here's 50. Like, no one has time for that. I want to be efficient. So I do have a higher request rate than a lot of agents, but that's because I'm excited by story. I think like I'm like, yeah, give me everything. I'll read it all. So the query inbox looks a little messy right now. Rosecliff does something a little unique in that in addition to all the things we always want to see, we produce seasonal manuscript wish lists because vibes change, story changes, what we want to read changes. So I'm just getting to the bulk of the end of winter's manuscript wish list as we prepare for spring. So it's really fun to see these broody, gothic kind of, dark winter stories. And
Yeah,
now to look forward to, okay, I would like something a little bit brighter, like still make me cry, right? Like that's
sure.
always a given. Give me some
Yeah.
feelings. But yeah, so it's a little messy right now for sure.
So are you only getting unsolicited manuscripts or are you soliciting any?
I am not soliciting any. I am getting a ton of personal referrals. So I do a lot on the conference circuit. My clients, my existing clients refer their pals as well. So that's a lot of fun. But at this point, there's no solicitation because, like, I can't even imagine how to work that into my workload.
Right.
And I know agents who do that. They'll see really successful indie pub people on social media, and they will actively go engage with them. And it's smart because you've got an established readership. You know that they know how to write all the things. But for me right now, that's just not attainable.
Well, and I'm curious about when that becomes a part of a literary agent. So to put things into perspective for listeners who may not know who Rosecliff is or who you are, you said you got your query inbox down to 350 or 300. You said
350.
350. And how long has Rosecliff existed as an agency?
So we opened our doors May 31st of 2024. I'm in my query inbox every 2 weeks or so. I usually hover around 500.
Yeah. So that means you opened your doors as of this recording just less than a year ago. And that to me is a lot of queries to have to try and sift through. And I'm sure it's crazier at times
Yeah.
because everyone, it seems like everyone is submitting or looking for agents. And I'm curious if the solicitation aspect of it, because I've run into that a lot with like, oh man, this agent would be perfect for this thing, or oh man, this agency seems so great. They won't take unsolicited manuscripts. And from a writer's perspective, that seems, I don't want to say gatekeepy. It just seems so hard, like a hurdle to overcome. But from an agency's perspective, it is essentially a filter so that you're not drowned. Is it because Rosecliff is so new and small at this point that fitting that into your workload would change things drastically, meaning that right now you just need manuscripts, or is it because it would shift Rosecliff in a way that you don't even want it to go?
Yeah. I mean, look, at some point, everyone has to close the queries to catch up, right? Like
Right.
we can't work like maniacs all the time. And so I absolutely recognize that the agency will need to do that from time to time.
Yeah.
But this idea of closing to anything but what we're asking for or personal referrals feels so elitist to me. I mean, I never ever want Rosecliff to feel that way. We want to be the home for authors who feel like they don't fit elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I think also because, I'm literally doing all of it, right? Like the social media, the marketing, all of the agenting, all of the business. It's just, I can't imagine doing that. I don't want to do that. I want to go into my query inbox and be incredibly surprised by what I see instead of knowing, oh, so and so is referring so and I have to look at this manuscript.
Going back to something you just said, that, and I guess just as for Rosecliff, as the size of agency that you are
Mhm.
currently, where do you think, like, are you aiming, as far as the types of authors that you want to represent, are you aiming for, I mean, everybody wants a bestseller, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
Why not? But I'm curious about where agencies begin and where they are aiming, to
Mhm.
end up. And where do you how do you view Rosecliff's trajectory right now, like the place where you are currently? How do you view this, like, starting trajectory for you?
I will I will outwork myself. So where
Yeah.
do I see it going, right? I love the growth that we've had in less than a year already. I think we selling projects. I have a nice client list. I am selling projects. We have other agents in the agency. We're gaining traction. We're gaining all the things that I want. So if I step that out, we're never going to be Folio. We're never going to be PS Literary. And those are fantastic, amazing agencies,
Right.
but I think they have a different focus, right? So my focus is very much being that place for authors who might not feel like they fit elsewhere. And my focus is very much removing as many of these extra gates as possible, right? That's why I request fools. That's why you can come into my DMs. That's why if I'm at conference and I'm sitting there, please come talk to me. I don't want ever for this to feel like another elitist New York agency. And that's
Yeah.
no shade to New York, right? New York is amazing. That's where so much happens. And deeply grateful for everyone who works from and in New York. But I have a chance to create something different here. And so that's really what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. So do you always, is there, have you encountered any projects, I'll phrase it like that, where you didn't need a full manuscript, where you were like, this is amazing, I want to read your full, and maybe the person was like, I don't have a full yet, I've got a partial, do you want to read that? Or is it always get back to me when you have a full manuscript?
Yeah, so I rep nonfiction as well as fiction. And so, when you're querying nonfiction, you query on proposal,
Yeah.
right? Which means that your project isn't complete or it's just conceptual at that point. So just this week, I requested the proposal for a nonfiction project, and the author was frantic. Oh,
Yeah.
this isn't ready. This isn't ready. And I'm like, it's okay. I know it's not ready, right? I just want to see your proposal. I want to talk through it. But in the fiction space, I have not come across that because I think authors do their due diligence and they know not to query until your project is complete and as perfect as it can be.
And this is for my listeners out there, for anyone who might be listening now, because I know the answer for myself. Should you ever query if you don't have a full manuscript?
You should not query if you do not have a full manuscript. Please do not be so overexcited to share that project with the world. The ways that you can channel that excited creative energy would be go make a mood board, create a Spotify playlist, talk about it on social, but do not query until it's absolutely perfect.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
I
that's right.
I in the past, I think that's a great way to phrase it. Deal with that excitement, because
Yeah.
I've certainly had that point in projects that I've done previously where I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is it. I have to get this in front of someone because this is the one." Spoiler alert, it wasn't the one. And probably part of that was that I queried too early because, and you can attest to this as both a writer and an agent, no matter how great it feels, until you get to the end, you are not going to realize all the places that it needs to get fixed.
Absolutely. So much to say about that. So first, having that trusted early reader who's going to call you on your nonsense and say, "Hey, you used this phrase 12 times in 4 sentences or whatever." But then the person that you can also share that with that's invaluable, right?
Yes.
I'm working on a World War I spy novel right now, and I am exactly in that place. Like I sit to pages at 5 in the morning and it's 6:30 and I'm sending it to my early reader. Like, look how great this is. And then, a day later I get feedback like this,
Yeah.
because you can't see it. You're so
Right.
close to the work. It's impossible, right? And of course, you're never going to know what your beginning is until you get to your end.
Yep.
And so, this is a long process. You can't rush it.
That's part of the biggest challenge. And also, I mean, one of the reasons why having an agent, having an editor, having a beta reader, having someone else see the thing finished is such a big part of it. And do you think your experience, I mean, I don't think I think it's impossible that it didn't. So maybe let's talk about how your experience as a writer has influenced the way that you are currently agenting.
Yeah, author care is something I think about quite a bit. And
Yeah.
so author care means how I am showing up for my authors who are already on my client list. Because, being an author who's been on sub, whose books have died on sub, who've subbed new books, it can feel like you're just in a desert with no wind and no water. And so I really do try to water my clients as much as I can. I send weekly emails with updates of everything that I've done on their behalf during the week. We have a Rosecliff Literary Discord where everyone can hang out. I encourage all of them to share each other's stories on social, collaborate, post together, do all the things so that it doesn't feel like, oh, here's another part of this whole very long, laborious journey where I am alone.
Yeah.
And so that's a really big thing for me. And then also recognizing that, it's a community. It's not, you're not attracting followers. I really, really dislike that word. Oh, I've got to grow my following. I think you should think about it like growing a community because don't you want that at the end of the day? Aren't you wanting to magnetize the right type of people to you?
Also, community is a thing that goes both ways. Like it goes in, it's not a thing where you're just taking and taking. It's a thing you have to build and invest in. So I think that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Even better than readers, just like build a community.
Yeah, right. Build that community. Like, imagine if you can take it all offline and you put all of your favorite people in one room. How amazing would that feel? Like, what kind of energy would that generate? Like, how would you walk away from it? It's just that we're doing it online in screen form right now. So I think that that's essential. And it's also part of, that's very much informed by my experience as an author. I recognize that. Okay, let me back up and say, when I signed with my agent, she sat me down and she was like, "I'm going to tell you something very terrible." And I was like, "Oh no, what's
Oh
happening?"
God.
I know, right? I was like, but this is her way. Like she is just, she will tell me exactly like it is. And I love that. She said, writing is 30% of your job. The rest of it is all this stuff that you might not feel like is doing anything, but step out your career. What is your long-term goal? Reverse engineer from there. And as one would expect, I hemmed and hawed considerably for quite some time. I hate social media. I'm not doing these things, blah, 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 blah. Fast forward, guess what? She's right. Right? Like writing the book is only 30% of your job. It is building your community. It's showing up as a good literary citizen. It is doing all the things that you want someone else to do for you. Because you can't show up and say, hey, give me this if you haven't said, hey, how can I help? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Being a part of the community, buying books, recommending books, reading books, talking about them,
Yes.
all that stuff is just as important as sitting down to write. And partially, I think, like, I think reading, maybe just art in general, art in general has those looming figures of these like sort of outliers where it's like JD Salinger didn't do interviews. It's like, yeah, great. Are you the next JD Salinger? I'll tell you, you're not. Like,
Yes. Yes, and not only are you not, there's no way for you to
you
be
can't
because the
be.
industry has changed, the landscape has changed, the way people consume word has changed.
Yep,
It's never ever going to happen. And then also my question would push back to that would be, why do you want to be the next JD Salinger? Like
that's
that,
exactly right.
we've had that moment. Why don't you go ahead and try something new, something different, something that only you can do?
Yeah. And I know a lot of people push back against social media and bristle under it. I do, it's not fun. For me, I deleted certain social media accounts and won't open those again, but I have an Instagram now because I have to.
Yeah, you have to. Like, first of all, I love social media. Once I realized that I'm not speaking to a room full of strangers, I every single post on my personal page is a text that I would send my best friend.
Yeah.
And so, I think when you understand, you pinpoint exactly how you want to show up and the things you want to talk about, it can be super fun. Like Tommy Dean and I just did an IG live at 12:30. And it's great to just, I know every other Wednesday for 30, 40 minutes, I'm going to talk about craft with someone who is super smart. And then we can bring in our community and we can have this conversation. So again, it doesn't feel like you're just sitting to your screen by yourself. But beyond all of that, books are sold online,
Yep.
right? And pre-sales make or break a book. It'll determine whether or not you earn out your advance. It'll determine whether or not your book ends up on a list. All to say, it'll determine whether or not you have a career.
Yeah.
And so when I hear authors say, "Oh, I don't do social media," my first thought is you are missing the only opportunity to sell your books, right? Like, or not earning out your advance, say goodbye to your career.
Yep.
Even if you change your pen name, even if you do anything, like everyone's going to go look at your book scan numbers and it's going to be impossibly difficult to pull yourself out of that.
For any of my listeners or any writers who are listening to this, one of my previous guests, Daniel Kraus, writes more than anyone that I've had on the show that I'm aware of, like an insane amount of writing. And he still has time to do social media that is beneficial to his books and his career and also meaningful to the community that he's built. And that means you can too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we can point to so many different authors who are
Oh,
doing it.
yeah.
But what they're doing, when I think that this is where our big disconnect comes in, is first, they're not trying to market themselves and they're not trying to promote themselves. They are saying, this is who I am. And they're
Yeah.
showing up in a way that feels authentic.
Yeah. Be
Like I
yourself.
love, yeah, exactly, right? I love Gabino Iglesias's
Oh,
social
I
media.
love it too. It's great.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so great, and then I had the opportunity to meet him at, the New England Crime Bay conference last November, and not only did I feel like, "Oh, I know who this dude is, I know what his energy is like," he is exactly the same in person as he is online, and so how
That's,
cool, right? Like,
yeah.
that's what we want to show.
It's so great. His is a great example. I'm glad you brought him up because he does a thing where if you see a post, you can tell it's Gabino's, where it's
Yeah,
like, that doesn't look like somebody else's Instagram. It looks like his.
yeah,
And maybe that seems like a hard bar to clear, but just be yourself. That's what he's doing. It's there.
yeah,
And we live in 2025. It is not going anywhere. It's a part of your career if you want
right.
to have a career in this.
And if you don't, that's okay. Can I
Sure.
please
Yeah.
stress that to your
Yeah. Yeah.
readers? Like, if
Yeah.
you don't want to do it, no one is saying you have to, but you have to then recalibrate your expectations of what your career is going to look like.
Yep.
And that's totally fine.
Oh yeah. That there
Yeah.
it's essentially a scale, like a balance. You know, if you don't want to do certain things, that means that something else is going to be affected by it. And we don't live in the time anymore when, you know, Cormac McCarthy's selling millions of copies and going nowhere other than Oprah once every 10 years. Like, that is not feasible anymore. We can't change it. It is what it is.
Right, we can't change it. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Tommy Dean. He was also on the show previously, and he is one of the new agents at Rosecliff. So let's talk about adding him to the team, what that means for Rosecliff going forward, and also what it means for you. Like, does that change? Did that affect your query inbox or no?
So bringing Tommy on, I'll start there. I've worked with Tommy at Uncharted and Fractured Lit for a very long time, and I've known him online for a very long time. And so we were in conversation about something entirely different, and I just softballed it. I was like, "Hey, if you ever want to be a literary agent, because that's my way." And he was like, "Really?" And so like we talked slowly about this for several months. And Tommy is so meticulous and he's so detail oriented and he's really thoughtful in everything that he does. So he sent me a note and said, "Okay, I'm ready to go." And I was like, "All right, this is great." So it was such an easy addition for me. Like it
Yeah,
made so much sense for the agency. I know who he is at his core. And beyond that, I know what he brings in terms of an editorial eye, his place in the literary community, how he responds to authors. I already knew all of that from working with him for so long. So it was like, okay, yes, of course. Here's the contract. Please sign. Thank you. So, in terms of our inboxes, he's looking for things that are completely different than what I'm looking for. And
yeah,
that's wonderful, right? So, he's looking for mystery and suspense and thriller, crime narratives, things that, are adjacent to my genres, but not at all the same. So, he's got his own inbox, very excited to review queries. And I already know that he is taking so much time with them because we've talked through several. And he's like, and he already knows what he's doing because he's been EIC at Uncharted and Fractured for so long.
yeah,
And then in terms of what this means for the agency, right? Like I set a goal of onboarding 2 new agents within the first year, and we will meet that goal for sure. So I'm excited to have hit that benchmark. It did add in a new layer of work for me because now it's onboarding and here are templates and let me introduce you here and here and here. But
yeah.
that is literally the entire purpose of Rosecliff, right? Is to be the connector. And so if I can open up this opportunity to someone else, I'm absolutely going to, especially because I think if you don't live in New York, if you're not an undergrad coming out who can afford 6 to 12 months of an unpaid internship, for a lot of us, it's okay, how do I get into publishing? There is no road in. And so, offering that is just gives me goosies every time I think about it. It really does.
Yeah, I think the way that the internet has changed publishing and writing is obviously evident every single day, realistically. But having an agency, a literary agency that's not in New York, and also that is still like Tommy doesn't live in New York, you don't live in New York, and the ways in which New York drives the publishing landscape and industry. I don't want to say it's well, I wouldn't say it's weakening. It's changing, obviously. You know, you don't have to be there. And I don't think this is brand new for 2025. I think it's been happening for, a handful of years now. So having more agents at your agency, I'm curious where or maybe even if you've discovered your limit yet, where it's like we can only have this many, like I have to cap clients or we have to cap agents. Like, do you have a limit built in for Rosecliff where it's like, okay, if we hit this thing, then I know we're gonna have to cap how many clients we have?
Yeah, yeah. So I think every agent's going to come with a different number for what they can sustain and what they're comfortable with. Because I rep nonfiction and fiction, I've got a little bit more leeway. So I know that I would like to onboard 4 additional fiction clients this year, and I'm looking for 5 to 7 nonfiction clients because the way it works is just so completely different. And I know that I can sustain that workload because this is so fun and I wake up so excited to do this. Other agents might have other obligations that would prevent those numbers for them. So everyone's going to have a different number of lists. Ideally, I think I'd feel very, very comfortable if Rosecliff reached 10 agents. I think that that's a huge agency, in my opinion. Obviously, there are other agencies that are massive, but to stay true to our mission and to stay focused on community in the way I want us to, I don't think I'd want us to get larger than that.
So you sort of touched on this a couple times already, and sort of right there too. You wake up and you're very excited to do the thing, but you also talked about writing for 90 minutes in the morning. So I'm curious, breaking down an actual day for the head of the agency. So you, Jessica Berg, head of Rosecliff Agency, what's a day look like for you? Like, let's say you did your 90-minute writing. Now it's time to go for your day.
Mm.
What's it look like?
I'm up at 4:30
Oh,
at the
oh my
latest. I know. I know.
gosh.
Well, this is how I fit it all in. Okay. Um,
That's what time do you go to bed?
about 8:30 or 9. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I'm definitely getting my sleep, but so I'm up, I sit to pages and then I'm really big into fitness. So it's either a run or a lift. And then I'm at my desk about 8:30. And so deep client work for the first 4 hours or so, which means nudging editors, which means refining pitches, reading manuscripts, doing all the things that get the book sold. A nice break there, do some social media, look at overarching things. I teach a lot, so building out courses and tapping conferences is usually stuff that I do in the afternoon because it takes less brain power. So I usually wrap my day around 6 p.m. from like sitting at my desk, and then from 6:30 to about 8, I'm reading in my query inbox. And then, I try to do some personal reading at the end of the day of something that's outside my genre that I rep, and then I do it all again the next day.
So what are you teaching agency, I guess agency courses or editing? What are you teaching in there?
Teaching everything. Let's see, in April, I've got a 4-week course with Story Summit. We're doing the query blueprint. So participants will walk away understanding exactly how to query their manuscripts. So that's really fun. I'm super excited for that. I'm teaching a workshop with Lauren Kay later in April about what happens when your book's on sub, because I feel like that's a really murky sort of experience for the querying author. I do a range of craft topics. Later this year, I'll be doing a masterclass with Writer's Digest for kind of unbraiding what is high concept fiction and how to bring that into your work. So I try to lean into both the business of writing, the business of publishing, and then also putting my MFA to use and saying, oh, I can talk to you about story as well.
Yeah. And for anyone who doesn't know out there, what does it mean if your manuscript is on sub?
That means that your agent has found the perfect editor who loves the project, has taken it to an array of editors to say, hey, why don't you read this book? So it has passed the gate from the author to the agent, and now the agent has handed it off to the editor. Being on sub is the last step before your book is sold. So once you're on submission, editors read it. If they love it, they'll take it to their team. Their team will then never read it, right? Like, let's be very clear. Once you're at the pub board, no one's reading your book. It is the editor giving a 1 or 2 line sentence
Yeah.
summation of what the project is. And then you hope you come back with an offer.
So for Rosecliff, and you don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, where are you guys at as far as sales?
We've got some PM announcements coming.
Dude,
Can't really say more than that, but we're thrilled with what's happened so far. Yeah.
you can absolutely announce it here first if you'd want to.
I'm sure my clients would not be pleased with me, nor with the editors or the
No,
imprints.
they'd be
Yeah.
very upset. They'd be very
Yeah, there,
upset.
that is a gate that I'm willing to absolutely keep. But like it's not uncommon, right? We think about how long it takes to get an agent, right?
Yeah.
6 to 9 months when you're querying. And this part of the process, being on submission, it's about the same, right? It
Yeah.
takes a while to get in that groove. So yeah, I guess just watch Publishers Marketplace. We'll be in there soon.
Yeah. And your social media accounts, I'm assuming as
Of
well.
course.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Yep.
As we're kind of wrapping up here, I've talked to people in the past, and while I was at the film festival last year, I heard some people talking about, or someone asked a question in a panel that I was at about failing to get an agent and failing to get their project represented, get it out there. Kind of talk to me about your perspective of when things need to change for someone submitting. Like, it's going to be different for everyone, obviously, but putting a project out there, like 15, 18, 20 times and not getting an agent. Have you ever experienced that for your own writing? And sort of what's the process that you used to determine, going forward and changes?
Yeah, so it took me 5 years to get an agent, and that was querying multiple projects, right? I think the most salient advice I can give that will apply to everyone is to query very strategically, which is to say, query in small batches. And as someone who like craves efficiency, I recognize that that can be very difficult for a lot of people, myself included, because I'm like, I'm not going to wait. This is going to take 3 months. This is insane. But what querying in batches allows you to do is it allows you to tweak your query letter.
Yeah,
So it could be that the project is wonderful and the manuscript is perfect, but your query letter is trash, right? And so querying 5 to 7 agents at a time across your tiers, right? Don't just go with all your top tier agents because you're going to blow the query letter if it's not connecting. So across your 3 tiers, pick 2 agents from each category, query them, pause, reassess, see how you're doing. And so if the project doesn't get you an agent, it is demoralizing, of course.
sure.
It's incredibly upsetting. The thing to take away from that is that this is a subjective industry. And so that is not a reflection on you or your work. That is, maybe it wasn't a good fit for the agent's list. Maybe the
Yeah,
agent doesn't know how to sell it. Maybe, right?
right.
And I think that bringing this all the way back, I think that this is where your community comes in, right? So that you can have that space to talk about how this feels for you and then to commiserate with other authors who might be experiencing the same thing. And then guess what? If you're really an author, you're going to be like, okay, well, that was terrible. Let me tell you about this other story idea I have,
Yeah.
right? And you're just going to keep going and keep going because it is intrinsic to who we are at the core.
Yep. We can't stop. And also, a couple of things that people have said in the past that had helped me is that agents want to buy your book, or they want to sell it. They
Yes.
want you, they want to say yes. You're not thrilled to say no. You're looking for the yes.
Yeah, always. I mean, because all of this is free work until I sell a project.
Yep.
And I think that's a big disconnect in our industry is no one understands that 15% of nothing is nothing, right? So, like, I want to find the project, I want to find the editor, I want to get the book sold, but it's just not that easy, as we all know.
That also, and there's kind of not a single process in any step of the way if you want to get a book published that goes fast.
None.
It's slow to write it, it's slow to edit it,
Mhm.
slow to find an agent, and then when it's time for to get published, like the rare book is the book that goes to print and gets published in like 6 months. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
happen.
No, it doesn't happen. It's 18 months, from the time you sign your contract, it's 18 months. And that's fine because it gives you 18 months to develop relationships with people who are going to, blurb it and ask for arcs and figure out your Goodreads and do that 70% that we were talking about before, right? Do all the other things that aren't writing the book.
Yep.
So,
And
yeah.
if you are comfortable and confident that you can wait through the writing of your book and the editing of your book, then you can wait through that other stuff and do it as well as you can. Like,
Yes.
it's almost the exact same muscle, although yes, the excitement is hard to fight through sometimes.
No, it absolutely is for sure. And that's where you channel it into your next project. You go make that mood board, go for a run. I don't know. You've got to get that energy out somehow.
Yeah, something else. Don't
Yes.
freak out. That's the
No.
key part.
Yeah,
Stay
for sure.
sane.
Hmm.
So where can everyone find Rosecliff? Where can they find you? Where can they look up all of what you guys have going on?
Rosecliff Lit on social, so Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. We're at rosecliffliterary.com for our website. Manuscript Wishlist is, just search for our agent names. And then, of course, we're on Query Tracker to make queries easy. You can hang out with me at Jessica Berg, Blue Sky, Threads, and Instagram as well.
Excellent. Well, I had a blast chatting. This was
Yeah.
super informative and answered a lot of stuff that I'd had, rocketing around my head for a while.
Absolutely, my pleasure. This was so much fun. It's great to talk about the industry in a way that, peels back the curtain, which is what we're trying to do.
Thank you so much to Jessica Berg for stopping by and chatting with me about Rosecliff Literary. Go to rosecliffliterary.com to check out their agency and think about querying if you've got something that you're trying to get out there. Go to austinrwilson.com to check out my work, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show. And always like, subscribe, rate, review, do all that good stuff for the show wherever you find it. It really does help other people find the show. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. And I have another interview scheduled for April 1st with an author whose book just came out in March. I'm very excited about it. So keep your eyes open for that one. I'll talk to you soon.